3,200 invalid subscriptions in 4 hours, all from a single bot hitting your API directly. The server never validated the input because you assumed client-side Zod was enough. This article uses useActionState from React 19 and useFormStatus from React DOM. In Next.js 16, useActionState is the recommended hook. useFormState is deprecated. Ensure your project uses React 19 Next.js 16 to avoid import errors. If on an older version, use useFormState from React DOM instead. The article mentions sharing schemas between client and server, but doesn't show the package structure. Use a shared package, e.g., at Acme Validations, to enforce a single source of truth. This prevents schema drift when multiple apps consume the same schemas. The article warns against async checks in Superfine, but doesn't explain the performance impact. Async refinements in Zod resolver block the form's validation cycle, causing noticeable lag on keystroke. Offload async checks, e.g., email uniqueness, to the server action and use client-side validation only for synchronous rules. Let's break down building type-safe forms with Zod, React Hook Form, and Next.js 16, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. Type-safe forms mean your form data is validated and typed at every step. Zod defines the schema once. React Hook Form integrates it via a resolver. Server actions revalidate the same schema on the backend. TypeScript infers types automatically. No duplication, no drift. The foundation is a Zod schema that defines every field's type and validation. This single file is imported by the client form, the server action, and TypeScript. Change it once, and everything updates automatically. Here's a typical sign-up schema. It defines string fields with min and max lengths, email format, password complexity, and a refine for password matching. zinfer gives us the TypeScript type automatically. React Hook Form integrates with Zod via Zod resolver. It uses uncontrolled inputs by default, so typing doesn't re-render the whole form. Use register for native inputs and controller for custom components like selects and checkboxes. The form component uses useForm with Zod resolver. We set default values matching the schema, mode to onBlur for validation on blur, and revalidate mode to onChange. The onSubmit handler sends data to the API and maps server errors back to fields. Server actions run on the server and must revalidate with the same Zod schema. Use SafeParse to get a result object, then map errors to fields. Business logic like duplicate email checks goes after validation. The server action extracts form data, then calls SafeParse with the same schema. If validation fails, it returns field-level errors. If it passes, we proceed with business logic. This prevents the client-only bypass. React 19's useActionState connects the form to the server action. It returns the state, a wrapped action, and a pending flag. The form's action prop points to form action, and errors are rendered from the state. Here's useActionState in action. The form uses action equals form action instead of onSubmit. Server errors appear in state errors and are rendered inline. No form data is lost on error. For invoice line items or survey questions, useFieldArray manages dynamic arrays. Zod validates each item independently. useWatch computes totals without extra re-renders. useFieldArray gives us fields array with unique IDs. We use useWatch to compute subtotal reactively. Each item is registered with its index. Append adds a new item with defaults. Multi-step forms use one form instance with conditional rendering. Validate only the current steps fields on transition using schemaPick and form trigger. The full schema validates on final submit. We define per-step schemas using pick. On Next, we trigger validation only for the current steps fields. If valid, we advance. This keeps validation incremental and fast. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. The client form used Zod, but the API endpoint had no server-side validation. A bot sent raw post requests with garbage data. The server accepted everything, resulting in 3,200 invalid subscriptions in 4 hours. The root cause was validating the Zod schema only on the client. allowing direct API calls to bypass validation. This enabled a bot to submit 3,200 fake subscriptions. The fix was to import the SAME Zod schema in the server action and call SafeParse before any business logic. Invalid data is rejected with field-level errors. Only valid data reaches the database. This prevents the bypass entirely. This is the exact pattern that caused the incident. No Zod validation on the server. The fix is to always call SafeParse with the shared schema before processing. This is the mistake that caused the 3,200 invalid subscriptions. The form validates on the client, but the API endpoint does not revalidate. A bot can submit any data directly, bypassing the browser entirely. Don't write ad hoc validation in the server action. Always import and use the same Zod schema. Otherwise, client and server validation will diverge, causing confusing errors. To debug, log the issues from SafeParse. Use curl to simulate a bot bypass. Compare the client and server schema files to ensure they are identical. Always validate on both sides. Let's run through some common interview questions. Why validate on both client and server? Client for UX, server for security, client can be bypassed. How does Zod Resolver work? It maps Zod errors to React Hook Forms error state on blur submit. What is useActionState? React 19 hook that wraps a server action and returns state, action, and pending. And a few frequently asked questions. Can I use one schema for client and server? Yes, import the same file on both sides. What if my schema has async refinements? Keep them on the server. Client async hurts performance. How to handle server errors in the form? Use form set error or return errors from server action. Let's recap the key takeaways. Define Zod schema once, use everywhere. Always validate on server with SafeParse. React Hook Form plus Zod Resolver for UX. useActionState bridges forms and actions. Ready to go deeper? Up next, 10 common Next.js 16 app router mistakes and how to fix them, then Supabase auth with Next.js 16, then TRPC v11 plus Next.js 16, complete setup and best practices and how to build an AI agent with Next.js, LangChain, and Supabase. Find them all at TheCodeForge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at TheCodeForge.io.